This is Harvey Dock. I'm a professional referee, and I'm a fan of Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show.
Hey, welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the grueling True Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we have got an A-lister for you today as our featured guest. Coming up very shortly, John J. Raspanti and I will be interviewing two-time Trainer of the Year and former IBF Super Featherweight Champion Robert Garcia, who's going to talk to us about his undefeated brother, Mikey Garcia, a four-division world champion who on March 16th will be stepping up two weight divisions to face the 800-pound gorilla of the welterweight class, Errol Spence Jr. We're going to ask him about the news that we broke on this show 3 weeks ago, that Spence hasn't yet signed up for VADA testing, and we'll talk to him about Mikey's decision to make that leap to 147 pounds to fight Spence. This interview is going to be really enlightening, and you're going to want to stay with us to hear that. Paul McLaughlin, our inimitable Brit, is also coming up to talk about the fascinating boxing scene in the United Kingdom, and we will open, as we do every week, with a conversation about the week in boxing with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer, boxing trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid is a boxing journalist from Toronto. John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com. And MaxBoxing.com, by the way, has a whole new look to it these days. So you want to check that out. And John and I also co-authored The World's Best Stocking Stuffer for the boxing fan and your family, Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, an Amazon bestseller. Yeah, John, new look, huh, for MaxBoxing.com.
Yeah, very exciting because I think it's more modern now, and it's really easy for boxing fans. And where our sister site is Seconds Out of England, and so the guy that does what I do, like a lot of the postings, name is Clive. So we've been kind of mirroring each other in a sense and working together. So it's made both sites a lot more productive, and we have a lot of news, and both of us are updating all day long. So that tells you that the site gets updated a lot, or I should say the site. So, yeah, it's very exciting. Nice to hear people go, gosh, I like going to your site now. And it's like, well, that's a compliment. So, yeah, we're very excited about it.
Outstanding. Well, guys, let's start with Saturday night fights. Vasily Lomachenko was a 40-1 betting favorite to beat Jose Pedraza at Madison Square Garden. Travis, you were startled that the bookmakers made those odds as lopsided as they did for a title unifier, but once again, Lomachenko just proved he's just that good. Scored 2 knockdowns in the 11th round on body shots. You don't see that happen every day. And won by 8 points on 2 scorecards, 12 on a third card, and he landed twice as many punches as Pedraza. On the other hand, it wasn't the easiest fight for him. He had a little trouble getting inside Pedraza's long arms. How did you think he looked?
I thought he looked amazing, especially coming off of the shoulder surgery. A lot of people thought he came back too early from that surgery, and I think that I do think that he did struggle a little bit early. Like, it seemed like he was a little hesitant to throw. I think it was the right hook, and that's the surgery that he had, I believe, and you could tell that he wasn't as confident early in that, and you could tell he wasn't throwing it. So I think that's why he did struggle. Not I wouldn't even say he struggled, but I think it took him a little longer to get started because, by all means, that's why it shocked me, the 40-1, is because Pedraza he's no joke. I mean, Pedraza can fight. He's a lefty Puerto Rican Olympian. Like, the dude knows how to fight. And he's also, this is a unification bout. So it doesn't surprise me, but it does. It only surprises me if I'm an average fan because I'm just like, these guys are both world champions. How the heck can it be a 40-1? But that also shows you that's how amazing and that's how good Lomachenko is. We're witnessing greatness for sure when we have a guy like that. It's a 40-1. I mean, the last 40-1 I can remember was Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. And, I mean, that was 40-1,
How that worked out.
Yeah, and Douglas upset him. But it's just, I haven't seen a 40-1 in a world title fight. And Buster Douglas, by all means, wasn't even a world champion. So that's why it just shocked me a little bit, but it shouldn't, because Lomachenko is as advertised. He is the goods. He is great. He is a top pound-for-pound guy in the world, and he's proven that over and over. And he almost proved me right. I always give my predictions on Facebook before these big fights, and I said that he was going to get him out late. Lomachenko was going to knock him out late. He was going to break him down, and it was going to be in the 11th round. And I was almost right. He knocked him down twice in that 11th round, and I was like, come on. And then the bell rang, and I was like, I almost looked genius and brilliant again. But, yeah, he ended up getting him out taking it to the distance. But it was an entertaining fight. I think Pedraza was legit. I think he's a warrior. He's a hell of a fighter. He's got hellacious skill and heart. But we're just seeing a different level of an athlete when you talk about a guy like Vasily Lomachenko. He's just on all levels, his reflexes, his intelligence, his ring IQ, his angles. I mean, the guy he's phenomenal. If I'm ever trying to give examples and train people, I will show them video of Lomachenko, because the guy does so much stuff well, and he does it so differently, and his footwork and his angles and the way he shifts his legs to one way, then he'll shift them to the left and throw punches from that. It's just, he does a lot of special things, and it's, to me, the only time I'm going to see anybody that's even ever going to come close to beating him is because Lomachenko is just going to try to continue to go up in weight and try to continue to fight the best and the most elite out there. And the only how I think anybody ever beats him is if they're just that much bigger than him and they have that much more of a size advantage. But otherwise, I can't see anybody even near his weight touching him. So the only one that we can talk about, I would say, is Mikey Garcia. But Mikey Garcia, he's got a beast that he's getting ready to face in Errol Spence, and I'm sure that Robert Garcia would love to talk about that later. But I wouldn't mind the Mikey Garcia and Lomachenko fight. So Mikey Garcia, whether he wins or loses, he's got a bright future and a bunch of fights still lined up that he could fight even after Errol Spence. So that's positive.
Riz, let me get you to weigh in on what Travis just said. Are we seeing any evidence yet that Lomachenko might be beatable? Is there anybody except maybe Mikey who wouldn't be a prohibitive underdog against him at 135 for sure, where the other top-rated guys are Luke Campbell and Anthony Crolla and Robert Easter Jr. and Richard Comey and Javier Fortuna? I mean, there's no threat there besides Mikey, who's headed all the way up to 147 to take on Spence.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to be honest, I didn't think Lomachenko looked his best last night at all, but his B+ is still the pound for pound best, and that just says how much miles ahead he is of everyone else. And Pedraza, I mean, in a losing effort, I think he fought probably arguably the best fight of his career. He looked way better than he did against Gervonta Davis. The Pedraza who showed up yesterday, I think, had a much better chance of beating Gervonta Davis than the one we saw. I think Lomachenko, I mean, it doesn't make sense for him to move up, because you saw in the Linares fight and the Pedraza fight, he's severely undersized compared to those two guys. And against a guy like Robert Easter, it would probably be the same thing. He's a much smaller guy. 135 is definitely his natural weight class. It doesn't make sense for him to go above unless there's kind of an A-list fight there for him. It really doesn't make sense for him to do that. But I mean, all in all, obviously he's still the number one guy in the world. What I noticed though is he fought a little more. I wouldn't say he wasn't as confident, but I think he was more focused, because he said against the Linares fight he got knocked down because he lost focus. I don't think he lost any focus at all last night. He was disciplined for 12 rounds straight, and I think he wanted to start earlier. He doesn't ever seem like a guy who's very content with his performance, and I think he knew if he started maybe a little earlier picking up the pace, he could have had Pedraza out of there. He wasn't able to. That's a lot to Pedraza's credit, but you also notice that his he's a pretty heavy-handed guy. I wouldn't say he's a light puncher, but it's not having as much of an effect at this weight. So he has to work that much harder to land punches, rather than, the circling that he used to do. It doesn't really work on the big guys really like this anymore. He really has to make them make a mistake, and he has to make them expend a lot of energy, so he has to use his footwork just as much to create those mistakes. So everything is just getting a lot more difficult. So I think, as weird as it sounds, Mikey Garcia might be a better fight for him because at least Mikey's his size, at least in terms of height and range, a lot better than these other guys are. Now, Mikey's talent's obviously on another different level, and Mikey also brings supreme athleticism and power and everything else. So, in some ways, though, this one of those fights where you'll see he'll have an advantage. But I mean, I don't know if that's completely out the door now that Mikey has went up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the Spence fight, because that's going to impact Lomachenko's entire career, which is kind of funny how that works. But I think it's similar. Mikey's kind of doing something similar to what we had with the Andre Ward, Golovkin, Kovalev situation. Ward was kind of in between two spots. He could move up and fight Kovalev, or he could try to lure Golovkin up, or he could try to drain to 160, get a catch weight. None of that made sense, so he moved up. Mikey's doing the same thing. So it's interesting to see that these guys are opting to move up in weight for a bigger challenge rather than fight the smaller guy one way or the other. So, it worked out for Ward for the most part, I'd say. Let's see if it works out for Mikey.
John, super lightweight's 5 pounds north for Lomachenko. And that's where you've got Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor and Maurice Hooker and Karel Relic and the guy we're probably going to have on next week's show, by the way, Ivan Baranchik. That group looks a lot more formidable than what I'm looking at 135. Riz doesn't think he's big enough to go up there. What do you think? Is that extra 5 pounds going to be significant to a guy who's got Lomachenko's skills?
He's got the skills, but I have to agree with Riz. I think that would definitely be a problem because he showed that he's having a little bit of a problem at 135, a little bit. He's just got crazy skills, and that's the thing that is so. I would never miss him fight ever. I mean, because he is so talented that when he only displays like a B plus, like Riz said, and I actually kind of agree. I thought for a while that perhaps he was having a bit of an off night. And Pedraza was fighting the fight of his life, so that made it a little bit closer. But then, as we like in a cliche here coming, we like to say the cream always rises at the top, and then Lomachenko started beating him up and throwing those combinations. I think so. I think that as he's shown, he's winning, of course, but it's been a little harder at 135. Linares knocked him down. The fight was very close. He was behind on one scorecard. He was on his way to victory, I think, even if he hadn't knocked out Linares with the body shot and knock him out, but stopped him. He was coming on strong. Linares was starting to fade. He probably would have won, but still, it was a close fight, very competitive. So Regis and those guys, he would be the smaller guy again, and he'd be faster, like always, in his footwork, just like Travis. He's got the best footwork. He's like Fred Astaire in there, or maybe more like Gene Kelly. He just moves around so nice. You talk about if you wanted to show another person, look, this is great footwork. Go home, watch this. I know you won't be able to do it, but this is what it's all about, footwork. I mean, you see so many boxers, and I'm not being mean to put them down here because I'm clumsy as hell at my age now, but, they're kind of stumble around and are a little awkward, but Lomachenko, his footwork is just so incredible. I mean, anybody who's a boxing purist has to just love watching that guy, and I'm one of them. So I just think he's incredible. But again, I do think the size would be a problem. Those guys are bigger, they're a little younger. He would hang with them and probably beat most of them just because, again, his skills are so amazing. You've got to remember, those guys have never faced anybody like him either. Travis and I were talking off mic about trying to get ready to face somebody that's so talented, and you try to bring in sparring partners and you bring some guys in that are quick and all this, but nobody could emulate Lomachenko, no way. So, yeah, he's fast and quick and all that, but you're going to get in the ring with him, and this is the thing about, Travis said so well about with a fighter, you get in the ring with him, you go, okay, I got a plan, I think I'm ready, I can deal with the speed, and the whoop, he's like up above what you even saw for the last 2 months. So he would do well in most of those fights, but I just think that he's pushing it a little bit. He might do it only because he's going to run out of guys to fight. A big fight with Gervonta Davis is possible, and then some young guys, a certain young guy last night who scored a brutal first-round knockout. Yeah, might be down the road somewhere. I didn't say his name because I figured you might mention him, Dennis. So that might be a challenge. So he's got some things to look forward to, or maybe not. Maybe you know what? I don't think Lomachenko would ever dodge anything. I think he fights everybody, and that's what he wants.
That's what I.
But moving up. No, I think I'm more with Riz. I think that's pushing it a little bit too much.
You know what surprised me, Travis, is that last week it sounds like Lomachenko's kind of been offered the Pacquiao fight, assuming Pacquiao takes care of Adrian Broner, and Lomachenko just dismissed him, said Pacquiao's too old, his days passed, he doesn't see the point. Well, to me, money would be the point, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to make any money except for maybe the Mikey fight, fighting these other guys. None of the other guys are box office smashes yet. Regis Prograis is exciting, and Josh Taylor's exciting, but they're not going to bring him the money that Pacquiao's going to bring him. What do you think are the chances that we might see Loma versus Pacquiao at 135?
Well, all I can say, is God bless Vasily Lomachenko for his mindset, because he doesn't choose money over everything. He chooses honor. He wants to fight the best. And, he's not wrong. I mean, he's not. I think he would beat Pacquiao because Pacquiao is older. Pacquiao's past his prime. Pacquiao should retire. However, the business side of stuff, I can see the people around Lomachenko 100% convincing him that that's the fight he has to take and that's the fight he needs to take, because that fight would catapult him even more into the scene, even though we as boxing experts here on the Ringside Boxing Radio Show know that Pacquiao's past his prime. But the average fan and the fan that actually pays the bills are the people that still know the name Manny Pacquiao. And there's actually still a lot of people that don't know who Lomachenko is. So business-wise, that's the right move to make, is to fight Lomachenko versus Pacquiao. But I love Lomachenko's mindset. I do. The guy is old school. The guy doesn't care about money. Obviously, he's a prize fighter, so he does care a little bit. But to make a statement like he made, it just made me fall in love with the guy even more, because he's not all about greed. He's not all about that money. He's about honor and fighting the best. And honestly, I don't remember hearing him say that, Dennis. So when you said that, it gave chills to me, because you don't hear too many people talking like that, especially in this climate where we have guys like Money Mayweather and Adrian Broner about billions, and all that's on those guys' mind is money. And granted, it's like I said, it's prize fighting. We do, as a fighter myself, I do deserve to be paid for my work, and I get that. But at what point, guys, is too much money too much money? When is it enough? And I think Lomachenko's like, you know what? I'm comfortable. I'm making really good money. I don't have to worry about money. So therefore, I want to do the honorable fights. I want to take the honorable fights, the fights that everybody honestly wants to see, the fights that will put my legacy even more out there. And honestly, having a Manny Pacquiao on his resume right now, that's not good for his legacy, I don't think, because we all know Manny Pacquiao's probably 3 to 5 years past his prime. So to put him on your resume right now, I don't think it adds to Lomachenko's legacy, and I think Lomachenko wants the best fights. And again, good for him. I became even more of a fan of him after that statement.
John just alluded to this guy who's 21 years old, Teofimo Lopez. Riz, he needed 44 seconds to score a one-punch knockout victory over Mason Menard, who was 34-3. Lopez is 11-0, 9 knockouts. He's as cocky as Macho Camacho, and so is his father trainer. He's already called out Lomachenko at 135. Is he crazy, or is this a guy that Loma should actually approach with some caution here very shortly?
I'll say this. I'm not a fan of his mouth because, my God, he has a big one. But, I mean, you can't really do a much better performance than what he did last night. Mason Menard is not exactly – I think he kind of has, I would say, a padded record. He's all his losses have been, guys who have power and can land. I mean, Raymond Beltran is not even exactly the hardest puncher, and he had a knockout of the year candidate against Menard, too. So Menard's kind of that guy who just gets knocked out brutally. But that being said, 44 seconds, I mean, there's really not, you can't really do any better than that. So, I mean, despite all of that, I think this is what he is, though. I think he's ready for, whatever. He's going to get better, obviously, but he's not, he's 11-0, but he's not where a lot of prospects are only like 60% there. I think he's already, 85% of what he's already going to be. So I think a top 10 or like a title shot by the summer of next year probably makes sense. I wonder how quick they want to match him. Lomachenko, putting him against Lomachenko could be it could work well for him, but it also could be a Pavlik Hopkins-like situation, a career-shattering, ego-defeating kind of loss, where you're just embarrassed, right? And that's what Lomachenko's done that to a lot of guys. Rigondeaux and Nicholas Walter are still ghosts, you know what I mean? The guys who were feared are just, they're not even heard of anymore. So Lomachenko's had that effect on guys. I'm not saying that's the case with Lopez, but if that's the fight he wants, and again, because Lomachenko's kind of running out of options at in that division, then maybe it's not a bad idea. Now Lopez seems like he wants to move up in weight, which makes sense considering his he looked like he had a serious weight advantage last night, and he's obviously getting older and bigger. I'm wondering how quick they're gonna move him up. If he's gonna move up. Obviously, if he moves up, there's going to be tougher competition for him there, too. You got to remember, Lomachenko's had 450 fights total, something along those lines. I think he's pretty much seen every style there is. And I think the big thing is, Lopez has a serious weight advantage maybe over Lomachenko, but he doesn't have kind of the height and reach that Linares and Pedraza have. That's the only two things I've seen that Lomachenko's kind of struggled with. And I'm not even counting, Orlando Salido because of A, how many things Salido got away with in that fight, and B, how many, it was his second pro fight. He was still, you watch Lomachenko in that fight and you watch him yesterday, he's a different fighter despite, his extensive amateur background. He's a real pro now, where back then I think he was an amateur kind of on his way up. So I don't think Lopez is obviously ready for Lomachenko, but I don't think he'll ever will be. And and that's not a knock on him. I just don't think anyone will necessarily ever be. So I think it's time for him to get matched up much better. Menard was a good, experienced guy, but we knew he was going to get knocked out at some point. No one just thought it'd be 45 seconds, but because of that, I think there's a lot, Lopez is in some ways, maybe this is a stretch a bit, but he reminds me a lot of Fernando Vargas. He just has a certain amount of athleticism. He has power. He has a certain different kind of brash confidence, where Vargas was more just like, I hate everyone in the world and I'm going to show it. And Lopez is more has a certain amount of arrogance to him. But, again, the mouth combined with the power means that he has potential to be, if he keeps winning, he has the potential to put up some numbers and get some huge career-defining fights. But, I know he's young, but at this point, if the guy's already ready and he's already possessing, this power, athleticism, and these accomplishments, I wouldn't hold him back. Erickson Lubin, I think, was matched too quickly against Charlo. I don't think that's the scenario here. Lubin was, Charlo was still another undefeated guy. I want to see Lopez against another top 10 guy or top 5 guy before we have him against Lomachenko. But I think after seeing him last night, I think we're seeing that a lot sooner than later.
Man, that's amazing, 21 years old. Hey, John, before we went on the air today, you were talking about a fight you wrote about on MaxBoxing.com. Emmanuel Navarette took Isaac Dogboe's WBO junior featherweight crown by unanimous decision. This was a real surprise because Dogboe was undefeated and he was hyped as a rising superstar. How did Navarette do it?
Well, I started it with the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray, and that's very true. I think part of how he did it was that Dogboe's team was already looking ahead. They were already talking about unifying the belt and the belts, actually, I should say, and their next fight, and they were overconfident, as Travis was saying too. He noticed that they were acting like it was a given that he was going to win, and that's very dangerous in boxing, and I think that's what happened, is that he thought it was almost as if because he did pretty good in the early going, and it was almost like he figured, well, he just stopped this lanky guy soon, and that was the problem. He's only like 5'2", and Navarette's like 5'7", and that 5 inches isn't that big of a deal, but when your reach is about 8 inches plus it's 5, and I don't think he was ready for a guy with that kind of a reach and that height. He looked befuddled in there, and that was it. Travis made a good point again. He said he didn't think necessarily that Navarette was a more talented, and that's true. I just think that Dogboe Dogboe wasn't really ready for it. You know, he was struggling with all those things I just mentioned, the height and the reach, and I think he was surprised. So he tried to come back. In round 8 and 9, he dug down deep, you know, and if anything, I always love that when a fighter shows that kind of courage. I mean, he was getting beat up, his eyes were all swollen, he could barely see out of his left eye, and he went for it in round 8 and 9, but when he couldn't put Navarette away, he got pummeled the last 3 rounds. So yeah, that was an upset. I think he was a 5 or 6 to 1 underdog, Navarette, I'm speaking of. And Dogboe, that's a shocker. You could just see it in his team, you know, they were standing in his corner like, boy, did anybody get the license plate of that train? You know, they just did not expect it, and nobody did. I don't think the announcers, nobody. It was just one of those deals, and that's what makes not just boxing but sports always so fascinating to me all my life. Is that you think going in, well, you know, I wasn't even really watching it very closely at first because I had read the clippings and I had wrote about it, but I thought, you know, Dogboe's going to win. He's looking for a big rematch next year, and he wants to get the titles, and this guy's never fought in the United States. And again, as Travis said, a lot of times when a guy makes his first appearance in the United States, it's a joke. You know, he comes in with a great record, you know, and Navarette was 25-1 with 22 knockouts, so it's like a big deal. You know, who's he been fighting? But he was ready, and what I like, too, about him, Dennis, because I always like these stories, is like a lot of fighters, he had a dream of winning the title since he was a little kid, and he was staying up late, they were saying, just mentally preparing himself for what he was facing. So you're talking about a guy that was totally focused, and I believe, that's just my opinion, on the other side, Dogboe and his team were not totally focused. So you put all that together, and you got Navarette winning the fight, the title, and now he's a player in the division. So that's the great thing about sports and boxing is you just don't know sometimes. Those upsets happen, and it just makes it really interesting, really, really fun to watch.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor. We're talking to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti. Travis, HBO bowed out as a boxing network last night by giving women their biggest showcase ever. Cecilia Brækhus fought in the main event, and Clarissa Shields also fought on TV. They both won by lopsided decisions. What we continue to see here is that there are some really worthy female fighters out there, but their competition is just sparse, man. It takes two to tango. Shields is now 8-0, and she's going to fight Christina Hammer next, who's 23-0. That's a legitimate fight, it sounds like. They're both middleweights, and it's intriguing. Brækhus is 35-0. She's 2 divisions south at welterweight from those two, so she's never going to fight them. If she does, it's going to be a joke. And she's got nobody to fight. She's 37 years old. The only other female close to her to get excited about is Katie Taylor, and she's 2 divisions lower at lightweight. So this might be the year of the woman, and HBO did a progressive thing on Saturday. But, man, I cannot see promoters putting women in their main event very often, unfortunately. There's just nobody for them to fight.
Yeah, and you know, did HBO really do something progressive? Because it was almost like a throwaway. It was almost like, oh, hey, we're going out of business now, but let's go ahead and throw some women out there. You know, to me, it didn't seem genuine at all. And if you're genuinely about promoting women's boxing, you're not going to make it a live show and then just quit. I mean, if you actually believe in it, and HBO, we all know it's been a powerhouse in boxing for the longest time. To me, they went out with a whimper last night, and I think a lot of us believe that too, that HBO could have done such a much better job with their very last show ever. And to me, I hope HBO rebounds and they have the money and they have the capabilities to possibly make a comeback one of these days. I don't know if they ever will. But the thing that I just want to touch on what John said too about boxing and the beauty and the beast of boxing and why people watch. They watch for the upsets, but I think boxing of all sports, not just one sport, all sports, boxing I think is the most beauty and the beast of it all, because in basketball, if you have a 20-point lead, you're going to win that match. You know, there's not one shot that's going to let you lose that match. In football, if you're ahead by 2 touchdowns, there's not one single play that's going to win you that game. But boxing, no matter how far ahead you are in any part of that match, you still have to stay focused for the entire duration of that match. There's no stalling. There's no doing anything. You have to stay focused for 12 solid rounds, or you can be ended with one single shot. And that's why, in my opinion, I think boxing is the most special sport out there, because no matter how big of a favorite you are, no matter how big of a whatever you are, you still have to stay focused for an entire 12 rounds. And just 1/2 second, one glitch, one anything can end the show for you and end your dreams and lose you a title. In all other sports, it's not necessarily like that. So that's why I love boxing. And I do think you're right, Dennis, though, about women's boxing. I just don't think it's deep enough. I think there's talent out there, 100%. Clarissa Shields, she by far is one of the most talented female athletes that I've seen in a really long time. That girl has got hand speed. She's got just everything about her. She's very, very good. She's very confident in what she does. And it just kind of sucks because she doesn't have a dance partner, and she doesn't have that big rival. And unfortunately, Breakus and Hammer, after that, who is there? I mean, if she fights them, who else is she going to fight after that? Right. So and she's going to have, I think, she's 8-0. So if she fights Hammer, that'll make her 9-0 if she beats her. And then if Breakus comes all the way up, and which she probably will, they'll probably meet somewhere in the middle because that fight will probably happen as well. That puts Clarissa Shields at 10-0. She's 10-0, and then what? And that's the only thing that really sucks. And it's not anything against women's boxing. It's not anything against women athletes. It's just, who else is she going to fight that the fans are going to want to see? And that's all there is to it. And it's a good thing, though, right now, because I still think they shouldn't give up on women's boxing. They just keep building from where they're at and keep steadily building. And every year, year after year after year, we're going to have women looking up to people like Clarissa Shields and Katie and all the other girls, and they're going to slowly join boxing because of that. And we will see a new crop coming up. But I think right now, I don't think now is the time. But I think this is a building block, and I think they should keep building on it and don't give up on women's boxing, because it can't be there. But I think it's going to take a 5 to 10 year process of new crop coming up and having other dance partners, because like we all say, you can be the best in the world, but if you don't have anybody to showcase it against, nobody wants to watch it. And that's kind of where they're at with the women's boxing. There's one woman we want to watch for sure, but who do we want to watch her again? It's just not there, and it's not selling. So if they keep building and don't give up on women's boxing, I think they can get there in 5 to 10 years, but we're not going to see it anytime soon, in my opinion.
Riz, you made a comment earlier today about how impressed you were with HBO's wrap-up, which doesn't surprise anybody. I mean, they were the best at that kind of stuff. What did you see from that thing?
Travis talking about a fight can happen, end at any time, and we saw, in their recap, they recapped a Hall of Fame referee stopping a fight with 1 second left, and it did such a great job just to recap then 45 years of HBO's history, the ups, the downs, the great sound moments that we heard when the production crew just kind of on point with everything, hearing, Tarver say, got any excuses tonight, Roy, just adding the whole different elements to fights, hearing Emmanuel Navarette rip into Lennox, telling him, how to finish Mike and just get him out of there. And every kind of top fight that we can remember. And it's crazy to think that it wasn't this long ago that HBO was still the pinnacle of the sport. I mean, we're talking maybe 2 years ago, maybe not even that. But especially, 7 years ago. So it's a little, I think they had Larry Merchant on, and, he said it was a gut blow, and even though he's not even part of the broadcast anymore, Kellerman, Roy Jones, and Jim Lampley all shed some tears. And it was just, it's what's sad is that the recap was so good, it makes you wonder why the hell are they leaving to begin with? Because no other network, and you know what, this is just HBO in general. This is not even just their sports, but their television also, right? Their production value and their production quality has always just been higher than any other corporation, any other network. I mean, from your favorite television shows like The Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire and The Wire and all that, and obviously now Game of Thrones, they've always done, the best production possible, and they carried that into sports, and that's what separated them, because they weren't just telling, this wasn't just a match or a game. It was a story. It was drama, and I think no other network or no other crew. I don't think you'll ever see this again. I don't think you're ever going to see any group highlight boxing as drama more than those guys did. And Lampley spoke about, he said, he was talking to Larry Merchant, and he looked up to Larry Merchant for that, because Larry Merchant took sports from, a sports journalist. He, rather than just being kind of home runs and homers who are covering a team, he made it into, a group of men and women who are covering stories and drama in sports, and that's what kind of led to Lampley doing the same thing on HBO Box, because they all appreciate it. So sports journalism went from kind of a joke, as it was known, to real professionalism, and I think HBO kind of carried that through it. And sometimes you heard Lampley in his play-by-play and his blow-by-blow rather, kind of just drop a little piece of history of each fighter, of how that has shaped them as a human and therefore shaping them as a fighter. And I don't think you're ever going to see any other network, any other group of broadcasters just are going to highlight that. And I think, and that goes from what their fighting meetings were the day before and the questions they asked, and it was real journalism put into a broadcast. And it's a shame that, how, and it was harder and harder for those guys to do their job just because of how bad the fights were now. I mean, the talent level was different. You weren't getting A-lister fights, and when you did, it was just, the fact that Alvarez and Kovalev rematch was not really on HBO's schedule for next year was like shocking. And then obviously we understood why, but it was crazy that, that fight, the Golovkin-Canelo fight, was still kind of a throwback to what HBO was. And that recap that they showed last night had everything from, De La Hoya and Roy Jones and their rise to the sport, Mayweather's rise, obviously Pacquiao's, showing Gaddy Ward, showing the Morales-Barrera trilogy. And honestly, I recommend everyone watch it, because you actually forget how many great things HBO has done, but just how many great moments there was in boxing just over the last, maybe 10 years. People forget how many times Klitschko has fought on HBO. People forget how many international cover fights HBO has done. Obviously Golovkin, and then there's Leonard and Hagler and Hearns, and just they've been around for pretty much, I think, before. I mean, it's been 45 years, so we're going back to 1973. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we know of boxing now is pretty much from then onward, because that covers all the 80s middleweights, or the middleweights. That covers Ali Frazier and Ali Foreman and Foreman Frazier and everything that we know of boxing today, pretty much onwards. I mean, obviously we're not forgetting Joe Louis and Fury Robinson and all that, but all the people of today, everyone who's a fight fan, knows of these fights that I'm mentioning and has seen these fights. And it's because it's a little harder, I think, for even most adamant fan to go back and maybe watch a 1949 fight with the commentary and everything, not to say, but HBO had these standards from 45 years ago, and it just carried through. And I think it was a blow to anyone who's a fight fan and anyone who's ever watched the HBO broadcast. I mean, there's so many people I know who would only watch an HBO broadcast just because of the quality of it. And even though they knew it wasn't necessarily the best fight, they know that they would enjoy the fight more just because it's just a better production. And it's a shame that they're leaving, and I hope they get back into it. Kellerman, I saw yesterday they announced he's going to have his own weekly boxing show on ESPN, which is great. We haven't had a weekly boxing show in God knows how long on any network. Who knows what Lampley ends up doing. I hope Lampley does play-by-play, blow-by-blow somewhere, because I can't imagine, when I think of any great fight, regardless of it's on HBO or not, I'm thinking of Tim Lampley doing the blow-by-blow for it. So I'm hoping he winds up somewhere doing the same thing. But we're never going to see anything like this again. Not in our lifetime, I don't think.
I totally agree. And talking about gut blows, John, the World Boxing Super Series is in trouble because several fighters are still waiting for their cash bonuses, some of which are six figures. Ring TV said it was some of the investors apparently are being flaky. They're not putting in their promised shares to fund this tournament. So the semifinal rounds of these three tournaments, cruiserweights, bantamweights, and junior welterweights, are in real jeopardy. They might be canceled. If that happens, man, John, what a blow to boxing. This has been such a great event for all of us.
Yeah, I tend to be an optimist, so I'm hoping that they figure that out. But yeah, that would really be huge if that happens. And I like I said, I'm going to hope they've got a little time to rectify the situation. So I hope they figure it out. I got to say something about HBO too, Dennis, because I've been watching. Yeah, we've been watching it, you and me, and everything for 100 years. It seems like, and everything Riz said was right on the money. And you know what I really, really am going to miss? And I was actually talking to the sports person at HBO is 24/7 and the little documentaries that they produce, 2 days before the weigh-in, showing what fighters do before they get in, and they just had such a high level of competence and intelligence. I mean, and obviously, Dennis, you and me and Travis and Riz, we all love the written word too, and especially if you write all the time. And those 24/7. Some of the writing in that series, and I'm talking about all the years, some of it was flat out great as far as I was concerned.
Oh, my God, yeah. Legendary Nights. Remember that?
Yes, exactly. And you didn't hear very many people say that. I think that's part of what happened here is we started to take HBO for granted because their quality was so high, and when they started to lose it or whatever, we were stunned because 45 years is a long time, and when they started to drop off, and they weren't going to stay modern, they figured they can't compete. We noticed, and not with 24/7 though. I mean, even the last one that I watched, the quality, the narration, the shots used, the slow motion, everything was artistic in a way. It really showed what the sweet science is about. What the fighters are about. So that's what I'm really, really going to miss. Showtime tries to do it with their All Access, and they're good. And Showtime tries to do it with their fight broadcasts, and they're good. We like Al, and we like Paulie, and Morrow can go back. Sorry, Riz, go back to Canada or wherever he's from, in my opinion. But I don't like his screaming like he does. But. HBO was just better. I mean, let's be honest. They were just better in every avenue as far as I was concerned. And that's why I'm going to miss 24/7 so much, because being a film buff as I am and everything, I used to just look forward to those. And back in the good days when they do 2-3 episodes and they were funny and they were engaging. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to do like 3 or 4 for the Mayweather.
Yes.
They used to do a lot of those.
Right.
Like a month full of that. It was awesome.
It was, and it was because it was obviously all well thought out. And as I said, the writing was just stupendous. It was great, and I'm just gonna have a real withdrawal pains. I'm probably going to be thinking about that because they would have done one with the Kovalev rematch coming up in February. At least one episode, I would think, because that's do or die time for Kovalev. So it's really sad. I just kind of watched it last night and went out with a whimper, as Travis and I were saying, and I missed some of the recap over the 45 years as I was watching the other fight, Lomachenko's fight. But I got to go back and watch that. Hopefully somebody has that, just to remember all those fabulous memories that HBO gave us. So I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to try not to be disappointed in them because of all the joy they gave us as writers and boxing writers and fans, the fans they gave. So, yes, of course, we're going to be disappointed because we're going to miss it. But, kudos to them and their production team and Jim Lampley and Roy Jones and George Foreman and Larry Merchant and Andre Ward and all those people that helped make it so good. It's a loss. It's definitely a loss for boxing.
You said it, man. Withdrawal pains. I'm definitely going to have them.
Yeah.
Can't forget about the old legendary Harold Letterman. Okay, Jim, this is how I scored about. That's one honor that I'm going to take with me forever, guys. Is that Jim Lampley, Harold Letterman, and them called my fight when I fought Jorge Paez Jr. And to hear them talk and say my name on a pay-per-view bout it's going to be forever remembered now, because that group is now forever done and split up, and there is no more HBO. So, I'm very honored and humbled to have even been stepped in the ring and have those guys call one of my fights and even say my name on TV. To me, that is an honor. And Michael Buffer as well. Michael Buffer announced me. So, I will be forever grateful for that team. And you guys I can't say any more than you guys have already said, because HBO really, they were spot on with the production and the way that they perceived and gave boxers a platform and accurately displayed who we were as people inside the ring and outside the ring. And you're not going to see something that special for a while. Showtime is definitely probably the closest, but I think you guys are 100% correct that HBO, they really had it down, and they did. And I'm sad, but also, guys, I've been breaking up with HBO for about 2 years now. So it's been a healing process for me already, because they've just been not so good for a couple of years. So it's helped let me down easy, because I was already kind of in my mind moving on from HBO because of the production value over the past couple of years and the fights that they were showing. It did help all of us, I think, move on to bigger and better things, so to speak. But when we look back and remember the great ones, HBO had the great ones. HBO had the great fights. HBO had all of the greatness, and every other network wanted to be HBO, and every fighter wanted to fight on HBO. I can't say that's been the case the last couple of years, but I can tell you as a kid and wanting to fight on any network, I wanted to fight on HBO. And I think everybody in the world wanted to fight on HBO, and that just shows you what kind of network and what kind of boxing people they were. And I'm going to forever remember them in that light and be forever grateful that I got to fight on HBO pay-per-view at least once in my career.
That's cool.
Freaking awesome.
That's cool. That is.
Okay, couple more things. Riz, looks like Fury and Wilder are going to have an immediate rematch, thanks to WBC just sanctioned it. Joshua's going to have to wait. That's the way it ought to be, isn't it? Don't you think the rematch should be next?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I mean, and there's still options for Joshua. I mean, there's still Jarrell Miller out there, but it seems like he might get the winner of Chisora and Dillian White, but maybe it's one of those three guys now. But you know what? This is what happens when there's kind of a love triangle in the heavyweight division. Joshua, regardless of whose fault it was, but basically Joshua and Wilder were not getting a fight made. Tyson Fury came in there, and people didn't think he was going to play the spoiler role, and I think he did, and you should have got the win, obviously. But I think regardless whether he got the win or not, we would have saw. I think if he did, then we would have for sure seen a rematch. But because he didn't get the win, I think there was a very slight hint of doubt we'd see the rematch. But I think it still makes sense because for Wilder, even if Wilder loses against Fury, I'm going to say again, he won't get, he's not going to be, it's not going to really affect him too much, to be honest, because it's not, he'll still get a Joshua fight, I think, somewhere down the line. But I think it'll affect him more in from financial figures, because he's not going to carry the same weight as an undefeated fighter. But it's not going to be a brutal knockout that will kind of ruin his career. It's not going to be one of those kind of things. So it's still a pretty safe fight for Wilder, and you got to think that Wilder knows that, look, I hit him at one point, I'll just hit him again. Fury will be interesting to see the adjustments he does. I still think he can cut some weight. He's incredibly fluid for a guy his size, but I still think he was a little overweight because the shots he got caught with, he got caught because he was tired. He wasn't moving his feet as well as he could have and should have. But I mean, I think in some ways, even though Joshua might wait longer, I think this might be the best thing for him, because I think, despite Fury outboxing Wilder, Joshua's a lot smarter as a boxer than Wilder is. So I think that Joshua's eventually going to land on Fury, and if he does, it's not just going to be one shot. Joshua knows how to put punches together, and I think he has he still has enough of a boxing game, boxing mindset to not get schooled the way Wilder did. So I think, and again, same idea for Joshua. If he loses against Fury, it's not a career-ending kind of defeat. Where Joshua and Wilder, who knows what would happen with those two? Like, no one seems to know what would happen at those two fights. So Tyson Fury has really shook up the heavyweight division, and it's despite what happened, the controversial scorecards. He's completely put a wrench in all these plans, because any kind of, first of all, he's a backup for any of these two guys now. So I don't think either of them can can play the waiting game too much, because I'm sure Joshua Sai is realizing that, shoot, you know what, we got a little lucky, because if Fury won that fight, we might have never fought Wilder, and we wouldn't ever get, the money that we were hoping for. And I think Wilder's probably looking at the same way, that we can't let Joshua fight Fury, because same idea. If he loses, the whole allure of two undefeated heavyweights is just not happening anymore. So it's amazing what Fury has done to that heavyweight division, and I'm hoping he wins a rematch. I don't think he does, though, unfortunately, but I just think that he was absolutely. And a draw is not the problem. No one's questioning the result of a draw, but that one scorecard is up there with me. I thought the more I think about it, the more I think it's up there with the C.J. Ross and Adelaide Bird scorecard, and you never want to have your name associated with those two ever, because the funny thing is, it overshadowed everyone. It overshadowed a great event. It overshadowed two great fighters who put on a great fight. It overshadowed Jack Reese probably with one of the best officiating performances I can remember in a while, and some of the best officiating performances you don't notice. So it's not. I'm not insulting any other official, but that was the best non-stoppage I think I've ever seen. It would have been, no one would have blamed him if he stopped the fight right there, and that's up there with the name is escaping me now, but the referee who didn't stop Pavlik and Steve Smoger, who didn't stop Pavlik and Taylor. No one would have blamed Steve Smoger if he had stopped that fight, but he gave the fighters an opportunity. So the whole thing was just overshadowed by that. So you gotta root for Fury, and what he's done, and his comeback to the sport is nothing short of amazing, because I don't think anyone thought he'd lose 150 pounds and come back and fight. And let's face it, he's not. I don't think he's. He only had 2 tune-up fights. I think this is a lot quicker than he was expecting also, but he took the opportunity. So you got to root for him, and I really hope he comes out with the win, because he deserved the win in the first one.
Okay, and finally, John, our Bonehead of the Week award for the Ringside Boxing Show goes to Demetrius Andrade, who was arrested in Providence, Rhode Island last week for carrying an unlicensed gun. Cops pulled him over because he was blocking traffic in his Mercedes at 2:30 in the morning. While he talked to a friend. Riz was all pissed off about this because he's in Toronto, and he thinks that he blocks traffic should go to jail for a long time.
Riz isn't mad about that. He's mad that he had a Mercedes. That's all he's mad about. He wants that.
Well, that too.
About.
Well, it's never the guy in the Toyota who's blocking traffic. It's always a jerk in a Mercedes. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Yep,
you're right. You're right. The arrogant jerk in a Mercedes. That's right. That's right.
So here's a guy who's in position now to take his career to another level, and he's been there for a long time. 26-0, 16 knockouts, and he's rolling around at 2:30 a.m. with an unlicensed gun in his car. It's really hard to feel sorry for a guy like that, isn't it? Adrian Broner's life philosophy is a bad fit for a boxer. John, what was he thinking?
He's been kind of an enigma to me for the last so many years. I wonder if he's, and I actually probably can speculate 80%. It's still kind of guesswork because none of us know him. But I just wonder how focused he really is. Because you notice, a guy who's really focused into his career, you notice, and I always think about Andre Ward because he was a guy I covered so much, and he was a guy I watched, and he wasn't driving around at 2:30 in the morning in his Mercedes, talking to friends, causing problems with a gun in his car. He was focused on his boxing career. And I think most fighters are like that. Then you have the guys like Broner and Andre that they are and they're not. You know, they don't realize in a way that how privileged they are to be able to do something that they like and make so much money. And so maybe the point here is they don't love it enough because they can't control their worst tendencies. So I just kind of groaned when I saw it. You know, boxers are people, they make mistakes, but I really believe that it comes down to that with boxers, is that the ones that are really, really, really focused on their career and really want to do something are the ones that aren't driving around at 2:30 in the morning in their Mercedes, and it's not the Toyota, in the Mercedes, causing problems. They're asleep in bed, getting ready, they're getting up at 5 in the morning, and they're going to start running. So, I don't know Andre. He rarely fights, so that always makes me wonder about a guy, about his concentration and his determination. So I always say this, Dennis. I just hope that when you do something like this, such a bonehead thing, like you said, you learn from it. So maybe this will be a learn, but probably not. He's probably blaming everybody else or saying he wasn't doing anything or whatever. But I'm going to hope, because I said I'm the eternal optimist, that he learns from this and gets himself back on track and gets back in the ring before 2020. Says, gosh, let's do it, Andre.
Okay, and that's the end of the questions for you guys, but I also want to update our fans that with the news that Adonis Stevenson had brain surgery last week. He's in stable condition, but he reportedly is going to have a really very long road to recovery. So we've seen the last of him in the ring, and everybody on this show is pulling for Adonis because he's a real good guy. So these guys are our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti, and they educate us every single week. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
All right, take care, guys.
All right, John and I are going to be back in a few minutes with some compelling questions for two-time Trainer of the Year, Robert Garcia. Next up is Paul McLaughlin, our British correspondent, to talk about the rockin' boxing scene in the United Kingdom. That's coming up after one very quick break, so do not go away.
If you like the Ringside Boxing Show, you're going to love the website, ringsideboxingshow.com.
What are you doing?
Oh, boy, is this great!
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. Writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Hi there, it's Paul McLaughlin with your weekly roundup of everything going on in the UK boxing scene at the moment. Kell Brook earned a unanimous decision after a hard-fought win over Michael Zarafa at the Sheffield Arena last night. Despite dominating through 12 rounds, the Sheffield fighter was under par and was forced to work for a unanimous decision in the final eliminator for the WBA Super Welterweight World title. Brook, who had trainer John Fuchs in his corner for the first time, admitted afterwards that he was flat, but hopes it may now land him a big fight. Once again in his Sheffield hometown and with a fervent crowd roaring him on, Brook did show razor-sharp reflexes early on, effortlessly planting his feet and stabbing home a ramrod jab. The Melbourne man's face reddened with every shot in the opener, and following a minute's respite, the special one again marched forward with intent, landing a brilliant 3-shot combination. Zarafa's bloodied nose added to the away man's problems, and an early finish looked on the cards, but Brook left himself open on numerous occasions and looked very sloppy as the fight wore on. Victory was never in doubt, but his performance won't have done much to impress anyone else in the division. Here is what Brook thought himself.
I'm disappointed, but we got the win. You can't always look brand new. We got the win. I was definitely in the part tonight, but it was good to share 12 rounds with Fuchs there in the corner. That was good. And the fans seen 12 rounds of me. Good, bad. There were different things, positives and negatives in that fight, but we'll look back at it and we'll move on. I always raise my game to the top level when I'm in with a top level fighter, and I think I'm obviously training really hard and training very well because we're a different look, a fresh trainer, new look. Our control of the training camp, looking at the data from from previous fights all the way back to quarter, you know, hitting the targets, and you know, training camp was going fantastic. But you know, tonight I just got a bit frustrated. You know, it just didn't smooth. But like I said, we'll look back at it, and we're definitely going to come again, and be great.
Well, I think the only good thing to come out of this performance is that due to the nature of it, it may tempt Amir Khan into thinking he can beat his enemy once and for all, but only time will tell. Elsewhere on the bill, John O'Carroll and Ghislaine Frenoir fought to a split decision draw after a pulsating IBF final eliminator clash in Sheffield. The bearded Irishman and his French counterpart worked at a relentless pace, but could not be split after 12 rounds of super featherweight action. The winner was lined up to take on the slick American Tevin Farmer for the IBF belt early next year, but Carroll and Frenoir may now have to go at it again to secure the mandatory shot. And elsewhere, Anthony Fowler finished the year in style with a brutal first-round stoppage of Jose Carlos Paz. The Machine was expected to get some rounds under his belt against the experienced Argentinian, but he quickly exploded into life and finished proceedings inside 2 minutes with a savage left hand to the body. Paz, who took on current WBO world champion Jamie Munguia earlier this year, sunk to the canvas with a grimace across his face after the hammering blow, failing to beat the referee's 10 count. A fight now looks on the cards with Ted Cheeseman, which would be a cracker for next year. Right, that's your lot from me, guys. I'll be back next week. In the meantime, gloves up and protect yourselves at all times. Back to the studio.
Hey, thank you, Paul McLaughlin. Great stuff as always. Trainer Robert Garcia is up next. His little brother Mikey has a monstrous challenge coming up March 16th, moving up 2 weight divisions to face Errol Spence in a battle of unbeatens. Robert will join us in 1 more minute. We will see you then.
Hi, I'm Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, where since 2008 we have been continuously sponsored by Garcia Boxing, the first family of the sweet science on California's beautiful Central Coast. Trainers Max and Sam Garcia and ring strategist Dean Hamilton are regarded among the most knowledgeable in the game. And Kathy Garcia, who manages all Garcia boxing fighters, is renowned for her integrity and career guidance, having taken 2 boxers to #1 world rankings. Together they comprise one of the most respected teams in the sport. Learn more by calling 831-261-3214 or send them an email at garciaboxing25@aol.com.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti, and today's featured guest is the former IBF Super Featherweight Champion of the world and 2-time Trainer of the Year, who has worked with a long list of elite fighters, including Marcos Maidana, Abner Mares, Antonio Margarito, Victor Ortiz, Kelly Pavlik, Brandon Rios, Fernando Vargas, Brian Valoria, Mia St. John, and his little brother, who's a 4-division world champ, 39-0, 30 knockouts, and currently training to jump 2 weight divisions for a March 16th showdown with undefeated IBF welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Robert Garcia. Robert, hey, welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show. Very much appreciate your time today. How you been, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for calling me. I just want to give you guys a little. You guys didn't mention Onito Donaire. He's one of my girls, and currently, you know, Jose Ramirez also. You know, we just had his last fight in September. So, so everybody still remembers. You know, Monito, he's been one of my greats. You know, I think we won like 4 titles together. So that was big. That was a big one. Yeah.
How many guys you got in your gym right now? How many guys?
What was that? Oh, I have well over 20 right now. I have 2 fighting this Saturday. I have 2 more fighting December 15, and then starting the year we start January 12 and 13, and we go on. I have fights mostly every weekend, but yeah, we already have Abner Mares training, Jose Ramirez training, Josito Lopez obviously getting ready for his fight against Keith Thurman, and Mikey will start pretty soon too.
Wow. It's amazing. You're the busiest guy around.
Yeah, you know, but I have great help, a great team. You know, all my fighters are also very supportive to each other. They all support and wish everybody well, so that helps a lot.
Yeah. Hey, 3 weeks ago on this show, we broke the news that Errol Spence Jr. is no longer registered for VADA, Volunteer Anti-Doping Association, which is the organization that tests fighters for performance-enhancing drugs. It's one of them. USADA is the other one. This came as a surprise to a lot of people because Spence previously was signed up for VADA testing before his fight with Kell Brook. Now he's preparing to fight your little brother in what's probably going to be the biggest fight of 2019, and it seems like there's nobody watching him. And my partner, John J. Raspanti, called you with this information 3 weeks ago and seemed to be news to you. Did it surprise you to find out that he's no longer registered, and does it matter?
Well, no, look, it definitely does matter. We actually, Mikey just called in yesterday to sign in, and to my understanding of what Mikey says is that so is Spence. I don't know how soon he's going to do it, but Mikey called in yesterday to sign up and start doing the testing. And to my understanding, the agreement is that they're both going to do it unless something that I don't know, something's going on, something that I don't know. But that's my understanding. That's what Mikey told us, that they're both going to do it.
That's good.
Okay. Boy, okay, we will verify that, Robert, for sure. We know Mikey signed up with VADA and everything. How often is he going to be tested? Do you know how it works?
Look, what I've gone through with previous fighters like Emmanuel Navarette or Brandon Rios, who did it for a couple of his fights, they randomly show up. They just show up without letting anybody know. Sometimes it could be twice a week. Sometimes it comes maybe once a week. It just varies. Sometimes this last Emmanuel Navarette was the last one that was doing it, and they showed up one of the days that I gave them the day off. I had already given them the day off, so they don't tell us when they're coming. They just show up. So they show up that day, knowing that the time that Admiral trains, and they showed up, and I had given Admiral the day off, so they went straight to his house. So they just randomly show up. Like I'm telling you, 2 times a week, sometimes even maybe the third time, sometimes just once a week. Brandon was doing it with Manny when Brandon fought Manny Pacquiao. If I'm not mistaken, we were in China for 2 weeks, and I think Brandon did like 3 or 4 times over there in China. Wow. Like 2 weeks that we were over there. So they don't necessarily come every Tuesday or every Wednesday. They come randomly whenever you least expect them to show up.
I see. What goes into it, Robert? Is it a urine test basically that they do, or do they take blood?
They do both. Yeah, they do both. They do urine and they do blood.
Okay, interesting. Because if they take out too much blood, could a fighter get weakened? Right? They must not take too much blood then.
Look, I don't think they do it after training when they show up. It's after training. Sometimes they show up to your house, to wherever you're staying, training camp, and they do it. But I don't really think it affects. It's not like they take a lot of blood. They just take just a little bit, enough to do the testing, because they really don't do that much.
I see. Okay. Well, there's a lot of time between now and March 16th before the fight with Spence and Mikey. Are you that concerned about it? I mean, you said you spoke to Mikey yesterday. Are you that concerned? Errol has never had any questions about his professionalism and everything. Are you very concerned, or you think it's all going to it'll all be fine, taking care of itself here in the next few weeks?
Look, honestly, our team, we're not concerned. We know Spence has been a professional in the sport. We've seen his career, and there's never been anything negative about him. I truly believe that he's never he doesn't try to do anything that he's not supposed to. He's a very talented fighter, very strong, and when he gets his wins because he works hard and is very talented.
Okay.
You were a world champion fighter yourself. Did you ever get the feeling that you were in the ring with somebody who was using PEDs? Can you tell?
No, look, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. Back when I was fighting, there was not that talk about PEDs. I'm not saying nobody did them. Maybe there was fighters doing them, but that was still something that very few boxers or trainers even knew about. I know that I'm pretty sure there was fighters, maybe athletes using that, but all that came in the last 10, 15 years where everybody's testing, everybody's talking about it. We've had so many fighters test positive. I don't even know if back when I was fighting, if they even tested for that. You know what I mean? It wasn't that big of a deal. Nobody even mentioned it. So at that time, I had no idea what that was. So we really didn't even know what it was. So if anybody else tested positive or was on something, we had no idea. If I lost a fight, to Joe Corrales, because he was just a better man and he hit tremendously hard, not because he was on something, or Ben Saki got me in the last round, it's not because he was on something, it's because that guy was just a monster. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the way we would think. Not where we think he's cheating. Because back then we didn't even know about illegal stuff like that.
Robert, you know what? I think you were on record, at least in the early going, as not exactly being on board with the idea of Mikey fighting Spence, who's so much bigger. He's got so many terrific options available to him. Most of them don't involve fighting a pound-for-pounder who's a lot bigger. Did you try to talk him out of this fight at all, at least in the beginning?
No, we did since Mikey started talking about it. I believe it was like January of last year when he started saying that he wanted to move up and fight Spence. At first it was more like a joke, like that's what we took it, more like a joke, more like something. Okay, yeah, we could do it, but when the time is right, let's move up slowly, little by little. Mayweather did it, Pacquiao has done, so many fighters have done it, but when the right time comes, and maybe also against the right opponent, Broner did it to move up to fight Paulie, so it's a big difference. Mikey chose the best welterweight out there, and when he was more serious about it in the last few months, we were trying to talk him into there's other fights, there's other big fights, maybe even bigger fights that could happen that would be as big or maybe even bigger, that fighting against a 135 pounder. But Mikey said, look, I already said that's the fight I want, and that the fight I want, and ain't nobody gonna change my mind. So now myself and my dad, my son, we can't now that it's done, we can't tell Mikey, you made a big mistake, we shouldn't have done it, you should have waited a bit longer. Now let's support him, let's train him, and let's get ready to win the fight.
Yeah. And why do you think it was the Errol Spence fight that he wanted, as opposed to maybe dropping down to 135 and fighting Lomachenko? Something like that.
Mikey's last fight was at 35, so he could stay in his weight and unify against Lomachenko. Look, that fight with Lomachenko, I think it still has to happen. It should happen in the future. I think that's I'm telling you, I probably think that fight is probably bigger than fighting Errol Spence. That's my opinion. I might be wrong, but I think it's a big fight. But with Top Rank and Mikey working with Showtime and previously, it would have. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but it would have just been a lot more time, or it would take a lot more time to work it out to where both camps are happy. With Errol Spence, it was easy because they both 500 PBC, and it was an easy fight to make. So that's probably one of the reasons Mikey chose Errol Spence. I think with Lomachenko, it's a fight that will happen when the fight is just a lot bigger than what it is right now, like Mayweather Pacquiao, when it has to happen, and they have to work something out with both teams, both TV networks, both, everything is okay with it, and everybody makes good money. I think right now, at this point, it might not be there yet, but it will be, I think, within the next year and a half.
Yeah. Mikey said he sees something, Robert, something that Max Schmeling famously said before he knocked out Joe Louis. Do you also see some vulnerability in Errol Spence?
Look, definitely, we definitely do. Look, it's, Errol Spence is a great fighter, great, fast, he's obviously the bigger man, strong physically, he's got, a lot of knockouts, so he's a very dangerous, but there is little things that I know Mikey's better at, and that Mikey's going to do that night when they fight, and people, people are going to be surprised. I'm not saying, I can guarantee you that, we're going to go out there and it's going to be an easy win for Mikey. No, definitely not. It's impossible to say that. We're going to be in a serious fight, but there's things that Mikey does that people don't know, and you could ask any of Mikey's opponents, the last couple of opponents that he's had, and they're going to tell you the same thing. When they see Mikey on the outside, they see something not too special. People that see the outside, Mikey's he's basic, he's beatable. But then once you're inside the ring, we've had a lot of our opponents in the last few fights that, we talk after the fight, we're back in the locker room, and they all say the same thing. Damn, we couldn't believe how hard you hit, and another thing is, man, once you're inside the ring against Mikey, we can't figure you out. Mikey has something, that sparring partners. I've had Walter with Junior Miller with sparring with Mikey, and after sparring with her, God damn, nobody knows until you're inside the ring with Mikey. Then you know exactly how hard he is and how difficult he is when it comes to fighting. Mikey, if you talk to Mikey said it 100 times. He's not only studying his opponent during the fight, but he visualizes the fight 2 days before, 3 days before, and he's told me many times that he even focuses on his opponent's breathing and the way they're breathing, the way they're looking at him, if they're looking at him or they're looking elsewhere. Mikey sees all that. Mikey doesn't just focus on the style that his opponent has. He figures them out by the way they're breathing and seeing him, all that, So there's little things that people might not understand, but until you're inside the room with Mikey, then they say, it was totally the opposite of what we thought. That's just something Mikey has. It's just a special talent, and there's little things that we're definitely going to take advantage of and work on to come out with a win. Yeah.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti. We're talking to the two-time Trainer of the Year and former world champion himself, Robert Garcia. Robert, how does a training camp change when a fighter doesn't have to worry about weight?
Well, look, it's actually going to be harder because it's not like the fighter doesn't have to worry about weight. He does have to worry about his weight because I don't want him to just come in and look heavy, look no muscle, none of that, So now we have to focus on getting Mikey strong, getting Mikey to be the stronger man, and well, not the stronger man, but just be a stronger man himself. Building a little bit of muscle, we need to work extra hard to do that because it's not easy for a 135 pounder to look solid and strong at 147. So that's one thing that we need to work. So the weight, Mikey's never really had an issue making weight. So making weight will be a problem, but we're gonna have to gain that muscle to be able to make him look good in the day of the fight.
Robert, how much does Mikey usually walk around at? I
think he's probably maybe 155. I don't think he ever gets up to 160. He's probably, normally he walks on 150, 152, but right now, he's, since we know he's probably not fighting, well, we know he's not fighting too much, and he already knew that 2 months ago, so he might have, he's come to the gym once in a while, not an everyday thing. I'm sure he's probably 155. I don't think he hits 160. So, he won't have a problem. Obviously, we could think it's going to be easy, but we need to work on his body to look good.
Right, that's right. Yeah, you're fighting Errol Spence. He's a natural welterweight. He's very heavy-handed. As a trainer, big brother. I mean,
Does that concern you, or I mean, would you rather you did say 135 is a little easier for us as far as Mikey goes, but the heavy-handed guys, some guys that Mikey hasn't faced. He faces guys like that in sparring, but what's your view of that?
Yes, it's a challenge that Mikey wants, and now we're behind him 100%. We have to focus on training him and getting him ready to win the fight. We don't want to see we don't want to train with that mentality of we got no chance at all. No, definitely. We know we have a chance, and we know Mikey could do it. Mikey loves a chance, and as a trainer, I also want that. Mikey's always been the favorite going into the ring. He's always, every single one of his fights, he's supposed to win. So he's told us many times, man, I want to go in the ring when people don't give me a chance. I want to be able to pull off a win that people don't expect me to win. And those are the best wins out there, man. In my case, I've gone through that many times with my gun against Broner, with Abby Myers against Player, and the list goes on. There's been many times where we're the underdogs and very few people give us a chance, and we're able to pull them up and pull up, come out with a win. Mikey wants to be in that situation. Mikey's seen it happen many times in my gym with his teammates that are not supposed to win, and they go out and they win. So Mikey wants to see that feeling. He told us, look, I've always been going into the ring in every single one of my fights. I'm supposed to win. I do win, I knock him out of the way, but I do win. Mikey wants to go in there knowing that very few people give him a chance, and he wants to challenge himself to that. And those are great challenges. I think that is great to think like that. It is a very tough challenge, but Mikey wants that challenge. He picked it almost a year ago, and he never changed his mind. He said, that's what I want, and that's what's going to happen.
Robert, is there a rehydration clause in this contract?
Well, look, I don't think there's a rehydration clause, but the IBF already has a rehydration clause where the fighter can gain more than 10 pounds, I believe, depending on the weight, I think. But I know it's not that much more than 10 pounds. So the IBF already has that clause, which is, I don't know if it makes a difference. They weigh in the morning, like at 8 or 9 in the morning, and then after that, definitely they could still go eat breakfast and maybe one more time before the fight. But the IBF does have that 10-pound clause the next day in the morning.
Interesting. So, Robert, how is Mikey going to win this fight in March? How does he do it? What does he got to do?
Look, Mikey's very smart. Okay, I think Mikey's gonna surprise the world to fighting obviously the fight of his life. He's got to fight the perfect fight. Can't make any mistakes. Can't get any confidence. Can't think it's going to be an easy fight. We can't. Not allow Mikey to think like that, and he will. But he's like the perfect fight. Mikey's very smart, very smart. I work with him every day in the gym, and I know how smart Mikey is. People don't really know that because they've never been inside the ring with him, and they've never been so close to him like we are. But Mikey has a special talent that he still hasn't been able to show the world. All the fights that he's done, like I'm telling you, he's always supposed to win. He's always done his job and has won. But this time, Mikey's going to bring out what people haven't seen. And after that, we're realizing that we were right, that Mikey was right. And he said, I see something, and I knew I could beat him.
And if he beats Errol Spence Jr. at 147, that is going to be special for boxing. That is going to be.
It definitely will be, and we're gonna, we will be preparing to do that. Mikey is special. That will be very, very, very big for Mikey, the team, for boxing itself. I think it will be big.
The challenge for you guys after that is going to be topping it. That's for Mikey. Isn't it?
We already joke around. I know that definitely won't happen, but we joke around. My dad always jokes around, says that after that Mike's going to go out and challenge Canelo at 160, which just playing around. You know, we said, and I, if I'm not mistaken, Mikey said he's seen Oscar De La Hoya a few weeks back, and that Oscar told him the same thing. Look, Mikey, you're so crazy. You're fighting Errol Spence, and you might even have a chance to beat him. I think we're gonna have to sit down and talk about you fighting Canelo. You know, joking around, but you know, even Oscar De La Hoya told you.
You guys got to talk him out of that one.
Of course.
All right. Hey, Robert, we've said this on this show many times. Mikey Garcia is daring to be great here. This is Henry Armstrong stuff.
Yes.
And your brother's showing the kind of courage that we seldom see in boxing. And for boxing fans, this is really special. So thanks for this amazing gift to the sport. And thanks to you for giving us some time today on the Ringside Boxing.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you guys for having me. You guys know any time. I know it's a little bit difficult sometimes with my schedule, with training and everything, but I'm more than happy to be on your show whenever you guys need me.
Fantastic.
Great. Thanks
Robert
again,
Garcia on the Ringside Boxing.
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Love you.
Okay. Hey, do you like this show? Do us a solid. Tell your boxing friends about us. Post the Ringside Boxing Show on your social media sites and help us grow. Also, if you haven't yet discovered the #1 boxing website in the world for daily boxing news, you got something to add to your bucket list. We update ringsideboxingshow.com 365 days a year with the biggest headlines and the hottest stories every single day. If you're a hardcore fan of the sweet science, this should be your first stop every morning, and it might be the only boxing site you need to visit all day. Check it out right now, and you will be amazed. ringsideboxingshow.com. Thanks, as always, to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and my partner here, John J. Raspanti. Thanks to our outstanding British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin. And, of course, another huge thanks to today's featured guest, the former IBF super featherweight champion of the world and two-time trainer of the year, Robert Garcia. And, of course, we appreciate you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked, and we'll talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Oh, boy, is this great!
It's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back, 'cause you might get cold cocked if you cross my path. It's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass.